we need to think about what we're going to do in the future if the schism within our church between people of different ideological persuasions continues to expand. Because they're not in a great place right now. In my opinion, in my estimation, Catholics are not in a great place.
Bergoglio, Pope Francis, is right there with all the globalists.
So this guy would be a traditional Catholic.
Okay.
And then the people who are on the Pope side are called the Pope-splainers. That's what's awesome about the church, is that we're extremely top-down and also extremely democratic at the same time. Traditional Latin Mass, it's now the counterculture.
The same social forces that are influencing Catholicism are influencing Latter-day Saints.
Because the way they go is the way you think the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will go.
It's possible. It's possible.
Interesting.
But we have some advantages.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I am your host, Cardinellis. Today I'm joined in the studio by Kwaku L, as well as Brad Whitbeck, Don Bradley, and Luke Hansen from the Cougar Chronicle. And I got bad news for you. Actually, Luke's got bad news for us. Apparently, the Pope is going woke. I served my mission in Buenos Aires, Argentina. The Pope's from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Catholicism and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints were the only two organizations in California that did not bend the knee to the woke mob. Together, I have marched with the Knights of Columbus, and now you say that the Pope is woke, Luke? What's going on? You've been in on this, bro.
There's some stuff
What's
that
up?
indicates this might be the case. Although,
well, okay, what's going on?
I've been informed that not everybody in this group agrees with that.
Okay.
But the biggest one, what a lot of people point to as the smoking gun, is the dismissal from his diocese of Bishop Strickland. We'll actually be doing the next clip, Cardin.
Okay, is Bishop Strickland that guy?
No.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, this is the next clip. And so Catholicism is interesting because the Pope gets elected and he's infallible, which we don't believe about our prophets when he speaks infallibly. But then a lot of times it seems like there's a lot more leeway to disagree with the Pope. Okay. So something you don't see in Latter-day Saint circles is something like this guy that you have queued up.
Because we're the only two faiths that kind of have this idea of a martyr person on earth that is a mouthpiece for God. With Catholics, it's the Pope, and there's the inerrancy of the Pope. And then with our prophet, the president of the church, there's obviously the prophetic mantle. And there is that funny joke that Catholics say about us that in our faith, you know, we're the only faith that says the Pope is inerrant and nobody believes it. And then you guys are the only faith that say the prophets can err, but nobody believes it, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's kind of funny that way. So anyway, yeah, what's going on with the Catholics? I've been hearing all kinds of chatter about the Pope going woke. Let's see what's going on.
Yeah, so this smoking gun is Bishop Strickland, and he's been pretty outspoken about maintaining, marriage, the actual man and woman union of marriage, as a tenet of the Catholic faith, while some bishops, especially I believe the German bishops, are kind of backing away from that. Francis has said a couple things.
Why do all these bad ideas come out of Germany?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Okay, cool. All right, well, let's see what they got to say here.
So this is Dr. Taylor Marshall. You can look at his sub count. You can look at the video count on this video. I mean, this is not just some random guy who picked up a camera. This guy has a following. This guy, people listen to him who are Catholic. And this is him talking about this news of Bishop Strickland being ousted from his position.
Okay, let's see what they got to say. Go.
Building it back better in their image. Yeah, I mean, that's the really... Bergoglio, Pope Francis, is right there with all the globalists, UN, EU, WEF, Davos, all this stuff.
So that's, I mean, it was a long podcast, but that's one of his big arguments. And he's just saying it out there in the open.
Dude, I've never heard.
The main thing he revealed there is his own politics, as far as I can see.
Okay, but whoa.
Wow,
with the new
shocking news. The Catholic Church is large and influential and a little bit corrupt. Duh, of course. It's the Catholic Church. Is this supposed to be surprising that they're on board with all of the
here in
worldly...
Here in California, it's one of the only institutions that did not bend the knee, especially most notably during Proposition 8. I know that's 2008, and I know that's nearly 15 years ago, and so on and so forth. But like that was a big deal. I mean, what they stood for on that high ground was pretty unimpeachable, and they're the ones fighting the good fight right now against the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, getting the rights back in LA County. It's a lot of these Catholic groups. There's been a kind of a revival, shall we say, amongst our Californian Catholic friends.
If I can ask, what woke thing did the Pope do?
He said a lot of like climate change type of stuff. Like we need to say, I think even just yesterday from when we were recording this, he was saying more stuff. We need
Okay,
we need
that's
to save the planet.
softball.
We need
That's
to do all that kind of
softball.
What
stuff.
defines woke?
Yeah, what's woke? What is woke now? I feel like it just means
Because if
anything.
climate change is woke, then I mean,
Well-
basically, your scientific community is pretty much woke. and
Well,
so
that
on.
we already knew.
I mean, that's not what defines wokeness.
I would define, and when people say woke, I see it as them meaning sort of the pop culture version of the Marxist conceit that any group of people will be divided into the oppressed and the oppressors, and the side of virtue is on the side of the oppressed. So the environment is the one being of the oppressed when you're talking about global warming. The LGBTQ people are the side being oppressed when it comes to marriage and family. The blacks are the ones being oppressed when it comes to anything that has to do with people of different races being together. And so that's kind of the woke mindset, is that you must always be on the side of those oppressed people. And there always is an oppressed person.
So how would you differentiate that from like in the New Testament where Jesus seems to consistently take the side of like the downtrodden, right? The lost sheep, the prodigal
That's because
son,
the downtrodden
the
aren't
poor
part
as
of-
opposed to the Pharisees and Sadducees.
Yeah. In that case, it's because the downtrodden aren't part of a larger class. The downtrodden aren't the blacks or the LGBTQ group or the environment, so to speak. It's actual individual people who come on hard times, and you can't just assign you're privileged and you're not privileged, you're downtrodden, you're not downtrodden, based on these broader characteristics.
And by the way, he wasn't always on the side of the poor just because they were poor. He, for example, told parables of poor people who were forgiven the debt of their many talents that they had, but then didn't forgive the debt of others and were therefore condemned, right?
Oh,
so it wasn't like he had like a tax gradient. It was like, if you had $45,000 a year or less in your aggregated income, you are therefore the poor and are automatically more virtuous. No, he had the gospel that he presented to everybody.
He
and
did
I'd
make
say,
blanket statements like "Blessed are the poor," but certainly, right? Like he's saying that the same kind of mercy that one person is shown should be shown to somebody else.
Like Jesus clearly did very much have a bias against the rich. It's easier for a camel to get to the eye of a needle than a rich man enter heaven, right?
I wouldn't say he had a bias against the rich. He was perfect in how he applied his gospel, but I think he recognized the natural man
Well,
gravitates
bias doesn't have to be
towards
wrong. I have a bias against pedophiles. I mean, I'm wrong. Like I think it's okay to have a bias, but like
Okay. So, I mean, look, the podcast isn't about defining woke. I know it's also a big thing on the left right now. It's like, we'll define woke. Okay. Well, when asked to define pornography, Clarence Thomas
but when our
famously
topic
said,
is the Pope woke, it's a good thing to know.
This is true.
I don't want to hear your
specifically.
your well measured and I don't want what is this fairness? Okay, just apply these historical like trained historian crap. Apply that to the past, not the present.
Critical thinking.
Okay,
Reasonableness.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but okay. So and
okay.
remember, I'm not a Catholic Church apologist. I don't trust any of those European big like rich
It's the
organizations that do
cynical
all the weird stuff.
application of intersectionalism as defined by the corrupt academic establishment in the 21st century. If you really want a definition of it, that's what I would say.
I think there is a precise definition of woke probably that could be used.
And
I'm
mine's
just
the
sort of
best.
You said a
probing
corrupt.
on that.
What do you say? It's a corrupt intersectionality of.
Yeah, it's a corrupt misinterpretation and application of intersectionality. Okay, you guys, the academic term is like, you ever notice how they talk about, we're going to study the intersection of race and I don't know, sexual orientation or whatever. It's called intersectionality, okay? And it's the corrupt interpretation and application of intersectionality. It is a bastardization of everything Western society has defined in past times in the modern day. They've stolen all the words. Now tolerance no longer means tolerance. Okay, it's been flipped on its head. And that's what I would say woke is. Now, similar to when asked how to define pornography, because obviously there's artistic, it can't just be nudity, because there's artistic nudity and there's non-artistic nudity. And it can't just be, pictures meant for the male gaze, because, not every picture of a woman that's meant to celebrate her beauty is inherently pornographic. Clarence Thomas himself said very well, when asked to define it. I know it when I see it. I think the modern person, especially somebody who is attuned to the real nature of the gospel of Jesus Christ versus the bastardized and corrupt misapplication of the gospel of Jesus Christ, has the sensibility to recognize it when he sees it. And so oftentimes, can you give an exact definition of how woke applies in that exact scenario? No, because it won't apply exactly the same way in every single scenario. But for those of us that are attuned to it, we know it when we see it. Is that a fair definition?
So Cardin, it seems like part of what you're saying is, so there's like a legitimate study of like the experience of different groups, including like disadvantaged groups. And like in scholarship, when we look at like the overlap of different disadvantaged groups, like let's say, women who've traditionally been disadvantaged in various ways, but the woman is also black, let's say, another group that's historically been disadvantaged, then that's what people mean by intersectionality. Fine to study that, but you're saying there's a certain ideology that tends to then be placed on top of that.
Yes, absolutely. You've heard the term intersectional, right? Like intersectional studies.
I think we all know, but we're trying to make it clear for the audience, because it does a little bit sound like it could be a catch-all for any argument on the left.
Guys, it's our modern Baal. That's literally what it is. Woke is our modern Baal. When you read the Old Testament and you're like, dude, why do they keep going back to worshiping Baal? Like, don't they realize that it ends up not working out for them? That's because we're reading this book 200 years after the pride cycle is gone 5 times over a millennia, and we can see all the patterns standing 1,000 years in the past that they can't see, okay? But it's the adoption of all those cry-bully arguments socially. It's the adoption of all of the unscientific ideas that are spoken in the name of science, of all the cruel ideas that are spoken in the name of love, of all the intolerant ideas that are spoken in the name of tolerance. That's what woke is. There's a reason why we call it woke, is because it's a catch-all term that it represents all of these bad and cruel doctrines, because that's really what it is. It is a religion. It's the modern secular liberation theology as applied in 2023. That's woke. It's the modern secular religion that is anti-Christian, anti-Western, and anti-everything the West represents, applied in digital sound bites online.
Okay, so you think so you're saying we're making the Pope is that now?
Well, that's Luke's claim, not mine.
All right, let's go.
No, this is my question, and that's more of Dr. Taylor Marshall's claim. But Cardin, can you just look at that video real quick? How many subs does this guy have?
779.
Okay,
that's a lot.
How many views does that video have?
I'm going to put it right up on here. So
200-something thousand.
See it in the screen. Yeah, he's got 779 viewers, and wow, holy smoke, he's got 271K views as of just 3 weeks being online, which was a lot and significant. Now, we're not going to say the Pope is woke just because one dude. Well,
and how many likes does this have?
Oh wow, it's definitely got a lot.
So what's the significance of how many views and likes it
has? This is what I'm trying to this is what I'm trying to point out. I'm not trying to point out that he's correct, but I'm trying to point out the Catholic Church might be 15 years down the road from where we are. Because, for example, we had a Tim Ballard situation a couple months ago.
Okay, cool.
And there was a couple of people, one that went around Twitter, X, was these 2 women, this mom and this girl, talking about, I think the church is involved in this child abuse stuff. I think they're covering up on purpose. I think Elder Ballard is doing evil stuff, Russell Nelson.
Yeah, that popped up in my feed a ton.
It went all over the place from the antis. The video had 900 views, something like that. In the Catholic Church, people make these kind of videos accusing the leadership of these kind of things. It gets, 271,000 views? When you adjust that for populations, they're still getting way more views. There's still a larger portion of the Catholic Church that is swinging this way of accusing their leaders of going woke. And then the other side, there's more of a schism.
I subscribe to a lot of Catholic podcasters, and this is a chatterbox online.
And they have labels for it. So this guy would be a trad. Traditional Catholic.
Okay.
And then the people who are on the Pope side are called the Pope-splainers. I was trying to explain the Pope to people. Okay. And he made a second video about this. And you do like Control F on that, and he's saying, I hate these Pope-splainers are all over the place. I can't believe these people making excuses for the horrible things the Pope is doing. The Pope-splainers this, the Pope-splainers that.
All I know is
Like,
I'm
it's
supposed
a
to hate the
big-
Jesuits. Which one's a Jesuit?
Yeah, I read Angels and Demons. I know things.
It's a good movie, too. It's a real good movie.
So, okay, well, here, so far, we're like, 10 minutes into this video, and we haven't really truly backed up our position yet. You know what I'm saying? So let's.
Why does
do
he
we
look like
finish-
Wolverine from X-Men?
That's
And The Greatest Showman.
yeah.
This is the thing, to be a trad Catholic on YouTube, it seems like you always have to have facial hair, you always got to be male, and your voice always has to be in the bottom quartile of tone.
Oh,
when
like
you're talking.
Matt
Just
Walsh.
like play him again, yeah, like Matt Walsh.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, we'll let
Watch
him
this.
talk. Let's see what he says when he talks. He's got a smooth.
We've got a super chat here coming in.
See,
Yeah, look at that. He does. He'd be
got
a
a
great
super chat
baseball
here
coach. It
coming
looks like a
there's
baseball
another
coach.
guy, Timothy Gordon. It's like the same thing. Got some facial hair.
Okay,
works
well, let's
out,
back
is a
up our
dude.
claim. Let's back up our claim here. You
Okay,
say that,
which claim am I backing up?
that the Pope is going woke.
So that's not necessarily my claim.
So what's your claim then?
My claim is that we need to think about what we're going to do in the future if the schism within our church between people of different ideological persuasions continues to expand. Because they're not in a great place right now. In my opinion, in my estimation, Catholics are not in a great place.
And you're saying that we should be paying attention to the schism that is happening between the conservative and the liberal Catholics.
Because like
the
you said,
Pope-splainers,
they're the closest analog to us.
They're the closest analog to us. Okay, so if I had to put in one sentence what you're saying that we should be paying attention to the schism that is developing in the Catholic Church between the Pope-splainers, ostensibly the liberals, okay, and the trad-caths, ostensibly the conservatives, because the way they go is the way you think the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will go.
It's possible. It's possible.
Interesting.
But we
Okay.
have some advantages.
Okay.
Our bishops, because this was a bishop, Bishop Strickland. He chose to go into that profession.
Yeah, well, let's talk about, so what was the catalyst? Brad asked this. Well, what happened? Why are we calling the Pope woke? And it seems like, from what I've seen and what you're seeing online, that it really results to the firing of this Monsieur Strickland in Texas. So give us the background here. Tell us why you think it applies to the thesis that the Pope is going woke.
Yeah, so Bishop Strickland has been, kind of like I was saying before, very pro traditional marriage. Basically, things that the Catholic Church held to in the 80s very strongly, that Francis and other people, other documents that have come out, and explicitly bishops within the Catholic Church. There is definitely a schism even amongst the leadership. This would be like 70s apostles disagreeing with each other publicly
Okay, yeah.
on stuff like the family proclamation. That's
Okay.
happening there. He's on what you would call in political terms the conservative side, although he always keeps it very within religious bounds. He's not
Now, here's
like,
my question.
we need to vote for Trump or we're not good Catholic. He's not doing that kind of stuff. It's we need to have our actual definition of marriage. We can't compromise on it, or else we're allowing people to live in sin, which isn't kind to them. Those kind of things.
Okay, now was this an unjust firing, or is this just an example of people doing what we have lamented in our church? I literally have done a podcast where people have said, I wish the apostles would disagree out in the open more often so we could get into their heads, we could see what's going on. We just like they did in the book of Acts when Peter didn't agree with Paul, and when there were all these different types of schisms that were settled a little bit more out in the open. Are we just kind of calling the Catholics woke because they got a division between the conservatives and the liberals, when in reality they're just speaking out in the open like we wish we did?
So first, I'd be puzzled at the characterization that Bishop Strickland, where he differs with the higher up Catholic hierarchy in the Vatican, is primarily on something like heterosexual marriage, because that still is very much the Catholic position, including the position that the Pope takes. Mm-hmm. Now, he has suggested softening some things in terms of so he still maintains, for instance, the Catholic position on divorce very much, but he also thinks that divorced Catholics should have some degree of access to communion and so on. My understanding with Strickland is that the biggest and more official issue behind his release is that it had to do with the Latin Mass, which is that's a giant issue.
You've actually segued right into the second.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I know the
topic.
Latin Mass was huge, and Latin Mass is basically now in modern terms pretty much just a euphemism for the conservative Catholics, right?
Yeah, and that's the other funny thing is that we have our sacrament meeting. Welcome to sacrament meeting. We have the same hymn book. We sing out of it. We have the same sacrament prayer. That's not the way it is in the Catholic Church. That they sort of had different liturgies that came up through disconnected, disjointed churches in separate spaces that couldn't communicate with each other very well. And as the church has been able to become more globalized and communicate with each other, there'll be sort of different versions of sacrament meeting, or maybe different versions of what would be our temple endowment or something like that. And they call them different rites. And so the Latin Mass, the TLM, all these things have to have acronyms. So the traditional Latin Mass is like the trad-Catholic thing. So all the trad-Catholics go to TLM. They go to traditional Latin Mass. This guy, Dr. Taylor Marshall, he'll say the Lord's Prayer in Latin every YouTube video. It's like, let's pray together, Nami Nostri Christi, and say it with the rosary beads.
Yeah, that's BA Catholic right there, baby.
And so a lot of
now he just has to take out a big, huge gun and execute justice on behalf of the papacy.
I got a question. What did Bishop Strickland do?
That's kind of the
what
question.
I've been wondering the whole time.
Yeah, what did he do?
Yeah, so what did he do? Well, he defended a lot.
He has spoken against Pope Francis.
Do we have a clip or anything?
Yes, I don't have a clip though. There are clips out there.
Not right here, but there's
he's made very
supercuts.
direct criticisms over and over of Pope Francis, and I haven't followed closely enough to know the exact things that are going on with the Latin Mass, but because in the U.S. in particular, so Latin, the vernacular Mass, as they call it, Mass in the common language that people speak wherever they live, that was brought in with Vatican II. And that has been pretty widely accepted in most places in the world. There are some places where there's more resistance to it. The U.S. in recent decades has become more of a place of resistance, where you've got most Catholics in the U.S. are actually kind of more liberal, and they just accept what the church said. Well, maybe they disagree with their church on the liberal side. They're like, oh, my church's stance on birth control and divorce and homosexuality is wrong. But then there's also a substantial group of conservative Catholics in the U.S. who are critical of the Pope because they think that he's too much on the progressive side.
He's going soft, man.
And so those people are tending to retrench in the Latin Mass too. And so I think because there's tended to be a connection recently between resistance to the Vatican and adopting the Latin Mass, the Pope has started to put restrictions on doing the Latin Mass because he thinks that the Latin Mass itself is acting as a sort of vehicle of like entrenching in more conservative ideas.
So there's a lot of moving pieces.
There are.
Okay. Well,
it would be like if President Nelson came out with the new temple changes they did 2 years ago, and then different temple presidents got to decide if they did the new script or the old script.
Or they said, we want to go back to the old before these recent temple changes.
But that's the thing.
And then President
TLM
Nelson's noticing,
in
this temple district where they're doing this, they're also criticizing me a lot, and they're criticizing other church policies. So maybe it's not a good thing that we're letting them do this older
And it was a
temple
watershed
ritual.
moment. Would it be fair to say, Luke, because you're kind of the authority on this subject more than me, but would it be fair to say that the firing of Bishop Strickland was a watershed moment? Okay. It was a watershed moment in which the culmination of a lot of undercurrents came to a head. And that head kind of became the proxy war for the two ideologies. Would you say that that's a fair assessment of the firing of Bishop Strickland?
I would say the firing of Bishop Strickland is a high watermark, or it's a flashpoint. It's a flashpoint,
yes.
In a war a Cold War that started with Vatican II, and the introduction of the Novus Ordo, the new order, versus the traditional Latin Mass. But the thing is, in the authority of the Pope doesn't have authority to prohibit the practice of a legitimate liturgical rite. And so at least this is the theory on the stuff that I've looked at.
Okay, so let's jump into the other clips, man. Let's check out the smoking guns.
Let's look at this
on.
one. So this is about the traditional Latin Mass. So this is another YouTube channel called Mass of the Ages. And it's basically a piece of evangelism for the traditional Latin Mass and against the politics of Vatican II that introduced the Novus Ordo that is now being pushed as you have to do this one versus the traditional Latin Mass.
And is that just, it's a mass ceremony in a different language?
Well, there's a couple of differences, and
no. It's a mass in the cool original language. Like, you know how in all the movies the hitman comes out with this giant oversized pistol that you don't know fit inside of his pants. And he says, "En el nombre del Patri, el Santi, el Espíritu Santo," or whatever, you know. And then he just ices the dude in freaking Latin. That's like the Latin Mass when they're doing the cool chants and they're like, ooh, doo, doo,
Yeah,
and they're
Gregorian
like,
chant.
yeah, it's like
So Mass is their
sick.
sacrament meeting, right?
But it's
Yes.
sort of
Their
also like the
sacrament,
temple
yeah.
ceremony.
Okay,
Because it's a
each
Thai
Sunday.
church.
And
Every day.
It's every day.
Every day.
And they
Didn't
do
you
it.
watch Reservoir Dogs?
No. And they, I watched Homeward Bound. Is that the same thing? Okay, so they do a whole ceremony in Latin.
Basically. Most of it's in Latin.
How do people understand it?
They don't.
They
no.
don't.
No, they memorize.
Wait,
What do you mean
wait.
they don't understand it? No, shut up. Y'all don't get this, all right? If you're more dedicated, look, the evangelical priests that learn Greek in their divinity schools, it's the only real education they get out of their fake divinity schools.
If I
all right?
walked into a
Is
sacrament
learning
meeting
Greek.
and they're speaking Greek and I don't have some free like heroes, I'm getting out of there.
Yeah, okay, no, I get it. But at the end of the day, if you're a super dedicated evangelical and you really want to study the words of Christ, you're going to study them in the oldest, closest language to what the original manuscripts are written in. And the original manuscripts are written in Greek. So a lot of evangelicals will learn Greek so that they can interpret the Dead Sea Scrolls because they're so dedicated to their faith. In a similar manner, many Catholics want to be as close to the original liturgy of the Holy Roman Empire and the Holy Roman Catholic Church. So they learn the language that they are written in, which is oftentimes what, Luke? Latin.
This
So-
would
right?
be
like
a tiny
RKJV.
fraction of Catholics who would actually know Latin, however. So
Yeah,
yes,
but
mostly they would not, traditionally, they would not have understood the Mass.
So I'm today years old when I found out that a bunch of Catholics are going to Mass listening to a man speaking a language. They have no clue what he's saying.
No, but you learn
Up
it.
until like the 80s, yeah.
This was changed by
So
the-
this guy got fired because he wanted to keep speaking the nonsense language?
Well,
It's not nonsense. It's beautiful.
so
What
here's
the hell is
thing.
going on? I am so lost.
Wait, but
This guy got iced from his job because he doesn't speak Latin, and this guy's mad because he wants to speak Latin?
The guy got iced from his job because he was speaking out against what he perceived was the church going soft on many important social issues, such as climate change, gay marriage, so on and so forth.
Most specifically, it had to do with the Latin Mass. But again, the Latin Mass
It's like
has
a
become
symbol of something else,
connected
yeah.
with these other issues for American Catholics.
So the Catholics who do the Latin Mass, they want straight marriage. They don't like abortions. They're the conservatives, and he's cussing out the Pope in Latin.
Yes.
Sort of, yeah. So
Okay.
So the Catholic Church officially is also against abortion. It's also against gay marriage and so on. But Pope Francis he hasn't changed the doctrine.
He's not
or
acting
dogma.
like
so
it in
He
their
softened
eyes.
things around the edges, which
So Papa
conservative-
Frank is a little bit more like liberal there, and so they're criticizing. But the liberals with Papa Frank, they want English Mass.
No,
They-
haven't you
yeah.
been listening?
Yes.
It's about the undercurrent of ideas. The conservatives have been generally gravitating towards the Latin Mass.
Yes, I get
because
that. I
it's-
get that. But is there an English Mass?
Yes,
Yes.
the
Okay,
vast majority
yes.
of them are in English.
So most masses are in English, and you said there's Vatican II. I thought there was one Vatican. I'm kidding. That's a joke. Okay, so all right. Okay, I'm starting to understand, but I want to be clear. As a guy who's not, this was very confusing.
Guaranteed Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh go to Latin Mass.
bro, this is the clip. Play the clip, Carden.
Yeah,
This is
guaranteed
the
Michael
clip.
Knowles and,
And
Matt Walsh.
when did Dallin H. Oaks get hair? Look at this picture. Who is this guy?
It's actually more Gordon B. Hinckley.
Yeah, this is like young
That's
Hinckley.
like
If he,
young Gordon B. Hinckley.
this guy looks like he knows people with baseball bats that'll break your kneecaps if you get too fresh with them.
So Kwaku, you're very confused. Like, why would people do this mass they can't understand anyways? But here is, as Carden prophesied, Michael Knowles explaining what's wrong.
Is that the second clip, bro?
Yeah, that's the second clip.
Okay, hold on. Is I gotta bring up the second clip? You put
Well,
it in the
it's
Discord, right?
the first clip in the order that I put in the Discord.
Okay.
But we already played the second one, so now we're playing the first.
Oh, okay, so it's the one with the guy that looks like Gordon, young Gordon B.
the
Hinckley.
one you had queued.
Oh, okay. This was the one I had queued. Jeez, I'm an idiot. Okay, so here we go. Here is young Gordon B. Hinckley. Traditional Catholic Mass, go.
I do not want to put myself forward as some expert
Yep.
of the documents, of as some canon lawyer, as a theologian. I am not. I am but a lay Catholic. Look.
Okay,
Why
yeah,
do you
Brad.
have Arabic subtitles on this? What,
Well, Dude, they don't believe in using the language that the people know in the first place, so of course they're going to use Arabic.
Wait, aren't those Cardin's Arabic subtitles?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why there's Arabic subtitles. That's a really good question.
He's talking about the Latin Mass, and we got Arabic subtitles. It makes perfect sense to me, guys. I don't know what's wrong with you.
So here we go. Michael Knowles, and before I press play, is Michael Knowles going to be a Pope-splainer? He's going to be a trad-cath defending TLM.
Trad-cath, yes.
Yeah, he's going trad-cath. Yeah, okay, cool. So here we go with the trad-cath, Michael Knowles.
So his premise right there was, I don't want to pretend like I'm a theologian on this topic, but. And then he's going to explain.
Okay, cool. Here we go.
Looking at the effect of the Second Vatican Council, and it has been a disaster. The things that they set out to do, increase participation, bring the youths back into the church, it just didn't happen. The opposite happened. And so now it would seem, if we have let these very radical people lead things for a while, perhaps we ought to now listen to the people who had urged caution, who have been vindicated every single step of the way.
Okay, so that's the argument. So the argument is you tried to make the church more modern with Vatican II, with introducing a Novus Ordo, which usurped the TLM, traditional Latin Mass, that had been there for hundreds of years. Your goal was to get the youths to be all cool and relevant and hip, and it didn't work. And now the Novus Ordo churches are the dead ones. They're mostly empty, and the traditional Latin Mass, it's now the counterculture. To go to TLM, to participate in a structured religion that has moral code, all that stuff, is now the counterculture to 21st century life. And so that's where the vibrancy is, that's where the life is, that's where the growth is, that's where the young people are.
So who are the trad-caths in Mormonism? It's not the Desnat guys, okay? That's not the trad-caths. Who are the trad-caths in Mormonism? Like, is it Don Bradley?
Well, it kind of be us then.
He wears a plaid shirt, and Matt Walsh wears a plaid shirt. So if you follow Don Bradley, are you a trad-cath? Like, do we read the lost 116 pages if we want to be cool? Is it the beard? Because I don't know. I see Michael Knowles right here, very clean shaven. He doesn't have the beard. Okay.
He's Italian though.
He's Italian, bro.
Yeah.
They don't do that.
Oh, okay, cool. So anyway, who are the trad-caths in our faith, bro, that need to be defended and need to take power again because we've given over the church
where
to
is
the
this
Julie
question
Hanks
coming from?
and the Novus Order, right? From Michael Knowles' commentary. It's coming from the video.
No, dude,
I pay
it sounds
attention.
exactly like Desnats to me. When you're saying, who is it? It's not the Desnats. I'm like, no, it's clearly
No,
the
Desnats
Desnats.
are crazy. You see what they've done to me? You see what they've done to Kwaku? These people
Also,
behave
the
like
trad-caths
woke
are,
scolds
like,
online.
good-looking.
What'd you say?
Trad-caths are like manly, good looking, and the Desnats so far have all kind of like plumpy, patchy beards.
Oh, really?
Like, kind of like
Yeah.
Savage, dude. Savage.
Okay, but I don't think we need them because we don't have this divided like sacrament war going on where all the sacrament meetings in northern Idaho are liberal, but all the sacrament meetings in Lehigh are like we don't have that divide. So I don't know if it applies.
Yeah, we're way more unified in this.
So that's what's awesome about the church, is that we're extremely top down and also extremely democratic at the same time. Like we're more top down. Everybody does the same sacrament. We all have the same temple prep.
Okay.
Sorry, not
And we're
temple prep.
sticking with one
temple
language.
ordinances.
What is
Yeah.
this silly the novus scrotum whatever? It's ridiculous.
It's not just that it's Latin.
What?
There's a couple of other.
Maybe block that.
Why am
out.
I trying to be serious right now?
Maybe bleep that
Okay,
out.
never mind.
Was that a Freudian slip or was that?
that was definitely on
I didn't mean to
purpose.
say it, but all I know is.
Are you okay, Don? Don is dying.
I'm sorry. This whole thing was so confusing. Learning about what's even going on, I was so confused.
It's not just the language. The traditional Latin Mass is usually quiet, so it's more of a contemplative time, whereas the Novus Ordo is more like talking all the time in English, so it's like you're watching something rather than having more of a personal pondering experience. The priests face you when they're blessing the Eucharist in the new one. So it's kind of like you're the center of attention. And the other one, they're facing the other way towards the altar. So it's like they're facing God. So
Yeah, and
God's
Christ
the center of
is the
attention.
center of attention.
And
Yeah.
The,
Is that the guy who walks around
tabernacle
with the
that
lamp that
holds
has
the
the smoke in
host.
it?
They've got more of the smells and bells going on in the
Smoke
TLM.
lamps. Yeah.
It's I already said it was quieter, more like whispering sometimes, Gregorian chant.
So
like
these guys have to listen to an old dude up there and explain the Trinity in Latin.
the homily, 'cause
Whisper the Trinity.
it's more like the temple. a lot of it is already scripted in advance. It's not like it's not sacrament meeting, like he's saying welcome to Mass.
Ritual. They're
Don't they
consistent
hold up
ritual
the thing
words.
like
Yeah.
this? Don't they hold up?
Yeah. They hold up the
like
host.
that?
So
Okay.
in the new one, they hold it up like towards the audience. In the old one, they hold it up towards the tabernacle.
I mean, the
or
idea is they're holding it up
crucifix.
to God.
Yeah,
but
there's like
but
these
it is
differences that
facing so
people
they can
argue
see.
about and are mad about.
I have realized I might know a lot about like Catholic political history and all like the wacky stuff they did in the medieval ages. I have no clue what the hell these people believe. I have no clue what they believe at all, and I am just realizing my ignorance right here live on this podcast. It sounds so complicated.
It is.
But that's the beauty. That's
Now I know
the
why.
beauty.
Now I know
bro.
there's so many Baptists.
Like,
Like, great. I can just walk in. Jesus is good. You like him? Yes. All right, get out of here. That sounds wonderful compared to this. Is yeah. Wow. I feel
lot-
very
no,
dumb.
I think-
Can we
I
get a
think it's
Catholic here to
actually-
explain his religion?
Well,
to me?
it's the
I think
high
it's
church
beautiful.
versus the.
So what I want to know,
I like
guess,
the Mary stuff though.
is bringing this back to the original thesis of the episode that the Pope is going woke. What did he do that is being perceived as woke? Is it the changes with the Novus Ordo stuff, or is it?
no. This is what we've been talking about. There has been undercurrents that have all
Brad, why
existed
don't you understand
since.
hundreds of years of history right now?
Yeah. No, there has been undercurrents that started brewing because Vatican II was in the 60s, right?
I think it was 80s or 70s, but yeah.
Okay, it was the 70s or 80s.
might have been
basically.
60s.
It was our parents' generation.
it was
Yeah.
the
Vatican
Vatican
II
II was in the 60s.
Okay.
Okay, so I was right. So it was Vatican II. It was another, what many people say, a bad idea that came out of the 60s. Okay.
Well,
And-
okay. I mean, as the sort of resident religious studies scholar here, so like
You can't help yourself, kid.
Vatican
You're
II.
such an academic. Oh, like me, like the guy that like someplace gave a piece of paper to.
Vatican
I
II was.
think better than you do. You know, like, so you need to listen to me.
Oh my
Because other people that couldn't do things and decided to think gave me a paper saying, I think. You know?
So to frame Vatican II as just like sort of like an American 60s movement would be totally wrong, right? So
'Cause
Vatican
it's the
II,
world.
for one thing, it's a global movement. It's not originating here at all. It has nothing to do
Yeah.
with drugs or, the free
Look,
love
if
movement.
you like Vatican
nothing,
II,
right?
you're a
Like,
hippie.
So Vatican II was actually a sort of comprehensive shift within Catholicism, and it was initiated at the top by the Pope, and there was what they call an ecumenical council. This is like a church-wide council where like bishops, cardinals and bishops from like all over the world participated. And so this is regarded as authoritative. So one thing I don't quite fully understand in terms of like the conservative Catholics who are against it is this is unquestionably the Pope acting ex cathedra, as they call it, from the chair, meaning he's infallible in doing this in Catholic theology. So I'm not sure how you square that. Like, well, he's acting infallibly as the Pope, but we reject what they did there. But Vatican II, it shifted all kinds of things in Catholicism. It wasn't just the Mass. It was, for instance, things like relationships with other churches. So it's the beginning of the ecumenical movement. So before this, Catholics had really declared that if you were not baptized a Catholic, you were going to burn in hell forever, right? And then,
Which, I mean, come on. Like, you got to stick to your guns, right? If your story is we're the original church, you got to, like, to me, that kind of only makes sense, right?
The problem is if the church infallibly declared in the past that people not in the church were going to hell, and then they try to later infallibly declare that, well, actually it's more complicated than that, then that gets into problems.
yeah, but they didn't. So there's.
And I'm not an expert enough to say
in
that's what
Catholicism,
happens.
there's even an idea that they call the empty hell theory, which points out that while there are official Catholic statements saying there's such a place as hell, there are actually no statements saying that there's anybody there. And so some people believe, yes, we know from doctrine that there's a hell, but maybe there's nobody there, right?
Because Jesus saves them all. And
So the Catholics came to this view under Vatican II that because they see the Catholic Church as like the mother church over all the Protestant churches, they think, well, the Protestant churches, they don't have the full authority still, but they are true Christians and they their baptisms can be valid, so people who are baptized Protestant could be in heaven. And they started accepting more of like biblical scholarship and things like this under Vatican II, right? So Vatican II had a whole set of changes that happened in it, only a fraction of which had anything to do with like the change of the Mass. Now, this is actually a subject though where I actually, I know Kwaku, like the idea that like, like what the issue is, should the ritual that they go to for church be in a language they can actually understand, right? Like that seems like crazy. Like, well, of course it should, right? But this is actually something where my own views are kind of complicated. So I actually like Pope Francis quite a bit. So when he was installed as Pope,
So you're a Pope-splainer.
yeah, I'm a Pope-splainer.
Pope-splainer.
So he comes in and he's like, I don't want to wear the crown. I don't want to wear all the Pope jewels and all this stuff. Like he didn't want to be involved in that. He's more like serving people. That sounds a lot more like this guy I've heard of, like Jesus. You
Yeah, you are a Pope-splainer. You are. See?
Totally.
You're
okay.
a radical.
So
Michael Knowles warned me against you. Michael Knowles warned me against you.
So, okay. Now, this is actually an issue where I disagree with Pope Francis. Okay, because when I look at, so as Latter-day Saints, I think when we look at the Catholics, we see certain parallels and stuff, but there are also like deep differences, right? So like some of the conservative Catholics, a lot of what they're entrenching on is stuff like, well, there should be no birth control, or people should not be allowed to divorce and remarry, things like this. Well, Latter-day Saints don't believe that, right? Like that's not our belief at all.
What I run into is them changing their own doctrine and everybody being okay with that. So if like you're going to reject birth control, if you're going to reject divorce, stick to that. Like even if my religion doesn't agree with it, I hate to see a religion saying, well, the modern times disagree with us, so we're just going to kind of explain it away.
I don't think it's a matter of modern times.
the-
How about a matter of like human welfare and the fact that like I don't really see the scripture saying these like
but they're not sola scriptura, so that's
Well, I know.
Yeah.
I know. But I'm saying, like, I, as a Latter-day Saint, I don't feel entrenched in, like, the Catholics should require priestly celibacy. They should, like, I mean, I'm divorced, okay? Like, the idea of, like, if I were Catholic, that I would be, like, forbidden to remarry and be in good standing or whatever, that sounds horrifying to me, you know? And so I don't support that at all.
Guy in the studio.
So what I see in the Catholic Church is, like, as a religious studies scholar, is like when a religion makes changes, there has to be in order to maintain a continuity so the religion doesn't just like fall apart, there has to be like a continuity along with the change or things just collapse. Mm-hmm. So if you look at like the reorganized church, the Community of Christ, they just changed so much so fast that they just fell apart. Their population is dwindling, right? And they didn't maintain enough continuity in the midst of change. So here's what I see with like the Latin Mass and all this. I would love to see the Catholic Church feel like they could update on things like divorce and birth control and so on, right? But I think that part of the reason why they feel like they can't is that they feel like they would be making too much change too fast and things would fall apart, which probably there's a lot of truth to. So from my perspective, why not maintain continuity with tradition through something like the Latin Mass that's not hurting people, right? Instead of trying to maintain continuity through policies that actually do hurt people. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I look at it and I'm like, well, I think they should have kept the Latin Mass and changed their stance on birth control and divorce, not the other way around. You know what I'm saying?
So the Pope's going woke, is what Don Bradley says. We
got it out of him eventually.
I think he's making a sort of miscalculation that because the traditional Latin Mass is tied to retrenchment on other issues, that what we need to clamp down on is the traditional Latin Mass. The traditional Latin Mass is not the problem here, but that's what he's clamping down on.
Okay,
I think it's a mistake.
Well, he is Argentine. And personally, I think the church should just hire him to be a church office building bureaucrat, because that sounds like what they do. So, no. Oh my God. I'm just totally kidding. So anyway, all right. So that's it. So it looks like maybe he's not going woke. It looks like maybe there's other undercurrents here. But I do definitely think that Luke's analysis that we should be paying attention to this, because the same undercurrents that exist over there exist over here.
The same social forces that are influencing Catholicism are influencing Latter-day Saints and other faiths. And so absolutely, I mean, I think that like looking at the larger world makes sense.
What's going on with the...
Hold on. Give it a second. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I say no. Look, if these goofy little Italians want to run around speaking a dead language, getting mad at each other on YouTube, be my guest. I don't care.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Well, to our Catholic brothers and sisters, we don't think you're goofy little Italians. Okay.
And I hope people in the comments section tell us more stuff, because
exactly.
Like Kwaku's experience, Brad's been kind of quiet. Like this is very
I
big and hard to understand.
know like 500 times more than I did about the subject and 500 times less.
You're welcome.
Quantum knowledge.
Okay, well, I will defend my fellow Argentine. Do you hear that? Pope Francis, I love you. Amigo, te quiero. No podemos hacer nada mal. Okay, so me and the Pope, we're down.
A duet. You guys are doing a duet of "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." Right?
Dude, I would do that.
We're gonna have on this show,
except for I get to wear his hat because I know he doesn't want to wear it. I will totally wear his hat, dude. That'd be awesome. All right. Well, let us know. Let's keep the conversation alive in the comments. Let us know. Do you think the Pope's going woke? Do you think maybe the conservatives crossed the line? And if you come at the king, you better not miss. And if you come at the Pope, you better not miss. Looks like homeboy Strickland missed and he got smacked down for it. I don't know. So let us know what you think in the comments. For this and more, check us out on wardradio.com. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Before you go, please make sure that you like the video, share it with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please let this be the video in which we earn your subscription, and that you press the alert button so you're alerted to all of our fun live streams and standalone videos and community posts. Also, if you'd like to help us out, please consider joining the channel. Members get all kinds of cool perks and benefits. They get early access to a lot of our videos and special emoticons and emojis during our live streams and preferential treatment there. It's a lot of fun. Speaking of a lot of fun, we have a super cool Discord. If you'd like to join our Discord, check us out on wardradio.com. There's a link to the Discord there. Also, you can sign up there for our newsletter. Our newsletter is a lot of fun, and you can put your email address in there. And if you'd like to contribute to the program, please consider looking us up on Venmo or on the Cash App. We're on both of those platforms. Also, if you just want to keep watching more content, right about here and probably right about here are going to be some more videos. Please check those out. And as always, for this and more, please make sure that you look us up and check us out at wardradio.com.
What it's like to be one of the best. Moving to the beat, feel the song in my chest. Yeah, we turning up, never settling for less. Like, woo! Gotta go big to make a statement. Stomp your feet through when we